So recently, the EFF marches to a town in Tshwane called Kleinfontein. EFF marches to Afrikaner only settlement. Well done, ANC. I mean, SABC. You didn't call it a whites only town. So a US expert destroyed, exposed, obliterated the EFF's march to Kleinfontein. So in this video, I'm going to show you a little bit from the march, and then I'm going to show you this US expert obliterating it, calling it a fundraising exercise. Now, if you stay to the end for the biblical reaction, this may be the most important video you have ever watched to see the scam that's holding South Africa hostage. And maybe you can use this video to spread the word far and wide, and hopefully we can have a prosperous South Africa. So let's see the march to Kleinfontein.
Escorted by heavy police in defiance, the red berets headed to Kleinfontein's main gate to denounce the Afrikaner-only community. At a gridlock gate, an unusual atmosphere as EFF members came face to face with more police. EFF leaders spitting fire, saying Kleinfontein should not exist in a democratic state.
That this community exists on the face of racism means that there must be no such a place that exists in South Africa. Like in many other areas, by the way, there are no black-only areas in South Africa, and there should be no whites-only areas in South Africa.
Their main gripe is the exclusion of black people in Kleinfontein.
We want their houses to be demolished. We want to see what we've seen for ages being done to black people. Some of them don't even build shacks, by the way, don't erect shacks. Some of them will go and build houses in property that they have communally purchased and wanted to use it for residential purposes. How many of them have been demolished?
Kleinfontein is just over 3 decades old. While no black people live here, the community insists that they are not racist, promoting discrimination or racial segregation, but rather practicing their right to cultural preservation.
We're a cultural community. We want people from our culture to live together, because culture, if you do not foster it, is very frail.
What would be the requirements that I would have to meet in order for me to get a house here?
100%. So we want people from the Afrikaner culture to come and live here.
Even though there are no black people there that live there, they refuse that it's not a whites only town. But there are no English who live there either. There are no French origin whites who live there either. There are no German whites who live there either. So the EFF guy says, first one says, we don't like this because it's racism. Second one says, we want their houses demolished. Now, why such a noise? I don't know. Let's look at the last time EFF made a big noise. Do you remember the VBS boss who got fired, who got caught, and he sang like a canary so that obviously he gets a smaller sentence? But remember this. Let's show you what happens when the EFF makes noise. This is his affidavit. He says, to my knowledge, Skamega is a company owned by Brian Shibambu, a brother to Floyd Shibambu, who is the deputy president of the EFF. The company, Skamega, was provided to me by Floyd to make payments that I promised to the EFF. I made this promise following the news which had broken in the media that VBS has granted former President Zuma a home loan for his Nkandla residence. Negative publicity arose in the country, particularly from those that were opposed to Zuma at the time. So the EFF made a huge noise about the fact that Jacob Zuma had gotten a loan from VBS, and now there's negative publicity. EFF had started a campaign like they're doing now. Just before going to Kleinfontein, they had gone to Orania. EFF started a campaign of mentioning VBS in its political rallies through its president, Julius Malema. As chairman of VBS, I then decided that Malema and EFF should be approached for VBS to explain its position and how the loan was granted. Khokhoro, who was VBS PR consultant, arranged a meeting for me to meet with Julius at the EFF's penthouse. Oh, he stays in a penthouse in Sandton. I don't mind anyone staying in a penthouse, but hopefully they're not cursing penthouses every day. Okay, penthouse in Sandton around April, May 2017. Okay, so the EFF does a big campaign about VBS and makes it very publicized and makes them look bad in public. The boss of the VBS comes to Julius to try say, no, please let's calm this down. This noise is making a noise. Probably the boss of Orania is trying to meet with EFF. Probably the boss of Kleinfontein, naturally, would be trying to calm things down and come meet with them. And of course, they had a lovely meeting where they ironed out their differences. No. Present there was Julius Malema, Floyd Shibambu, and Marshall Dlamini. Marshall Dlamini did not participate in the meeting and he was seated far. Fine. I explained to VBS's position and the fact that EFF negative commentary about VBS and Zuma was damaging their reputation. Furthermore, I explained that as black brothers, the EFF constituencies were VBS target market also. I further informed them, trying to be a good comrade, he doesn't get it. I further informed them that VBS, black people unite. He's trying to, get the black people to unite, like Julius, man, we are also serving the poor blacks. Let's come together as black leaders and understand one another. I further informed them that VBS was willing to offer a donation to the EFF. Now you're talking. Now you understand African unity. I then proposed that VBS can donate 5 million immediately once a bank account has been opened at VBS and 1 million per month to EFF. I also made it clear that the amount could only be deposited into a VBS account and that EFF should open a VBS account. After I left the meeting, Floyd and I remained in contact. At some stage, Floyd indicated that they had opened an account at VBS in the name of a company called Sgamega, which is owned by Floyd's brother. A transfer of 5 million as promised was made on my instructions to Sgamega. Subsequent payments were made to Sgamega VBS account every month. That's 5 million a month times 12. That makes it 60 million per year. Were paid from Vele and subsidiaries. Myself, Julius, and Floyd understood that concept of donation to mean I'm asking you to stop making a noise. To mean gratification, and Floyd and Julius did not provide me with EFF's own banking details for these donations. Further subsequent meetings were held between Julius, Floyd, and myself. The one notable one was where Julius and Floyd informed me that they needed funding to renovate an EFF restaurant called Grand Azania in Soweto. I informed them that I can make a plan. After VBS was placed under curatorship, I made Floyd and his younger brother, Brian, several times at Floyd's house in Bryanston. This was the first time I met Brian. At one of the meetings, Floyd, myself, and Brian agreed that the 5 million monthly and the 1 million monthly will keep going. It was agreed amongst us that a draft contract, blah, blah, blah. So they made a fake contract for consulting work in petroleum and storage facilities, and they backdated it so that it can seem that the payments were for some services. Is this new? Let's hear a US expert who has never been to South Africa, who does not know EFF or Brian, or Kleinfontein or Orania say something so profound.
Give me your quick definition of critical race theory and give me some of the top thinkers, philosophers, activists, whoever it is, that were really the people who provided the underpinnings of the philosophy.
Okay, so I'll give you a simple definition they won't like first, which is that critical race theory is calling everything racist if you want to control it until you control it. Because that's, in terms of what it is and what it does, that's really what it is. Just calling things racist until you have it under your control. Critical race theory, though, is a fundamental belief that the organizing principle of society is racism that benefits white people. And they call it systemic racism that was allegedly created by white people and embedded into societal structures, hit Marx, superstructure, like law, especially law, but education and all of the other institutional structures that hold up society and shape society. So racism is a feature of the system itself and has to be critically examined using critical theories to identify it and to challenge it and ultimately to reject it fundamentally by creating a full social and cultural revolution that will be, conveniently enough, led by the only people who actually understand this, namely critical race theorists themselves.
Okay.
Wow. Critical race theory, which is just a grandson of Karl Marx, is calling everything you want to control racist until you control it and it's controlled by the leaders who were calling it racist all along. You make a noise about VBS so that you end up spending VBS money. You call the Constitution racist because it's Dutch whatever, so that you end up with a new law which you control. You call anything racist so that it looks bad, so that you either get the money from it or you end up in charge of it. Wow! I just want to read you something from my forthcoming book, 3 Things Comrades Don't Want You to Know, which we're going to get in the hands of everyone. But look at, doesn't the same thing apply to land? Look at this. This is a judgment by the Constitutional Court in 2019 because people had been applying for land and the people who made Expropriation Act, the people who've been saying land is a land issue, meaning call the land racist. Why? So that you can give it to the people? No, so you control it. So the people sued the Constitution, sued the ANC government in 2019 because they just were not getting the land claims. The land had been transferred to government, but it wasn't coming to the people. So they had to take the government all the way up to Constitutional Court. This is what the Constitutional Court's judges said. The Department of Land Reform has shown unresponsiveness plus a refusal to account to those dependent on its corporation for the realization of their land claims. And despite repeated promises, plans, and undertakings, it has displayed incapacity or inability to get the job done. So they just would not give them the land. South Africans have been waiting for more than 25 years for equitable land reform. It is not the Constitution, nor the courts, nor the laws of the country that are at fault in this. It is the incapacity of the department to do what the Constitution requires of it that lies at the heart of this colossal crisis. The judges are shouting at them saying, I don't understand why the Zuma government at this time doesn't want to give people land, because the Constitution says they should. The laws give them a right to do it, but it gets stuck. Once the land is in the hands of the comrades, somehow it just doesn't get to the people. Well, let's look at Zimbabwe and Namibia. In Namibia, according to a 2018 Namibia Land Statistics Report, Stats show that despite commitments to transform the nature of land ownership to better reflect population demographics, not enough has changed. Land reform is not the only initiative that has failed to launch. Many of their ongoing socio-economic challenges can be traced back to this. Comrades don't want to give anything to the people they promise. This was Institute for Security Studies. Well, what about in African News reported this in 2000, late President Robert Mugabe had white farmers forcibly expropriated to reallocate their land to black farmers. The move was intended to correct the injustices of the past, the inequalities resulting from British colonization. But in fact, those close to the government benefited greatly from this redistribution. So the land was just ending up with comrades in Zimbabwe, just ending up with comrades in Namibia, ending up with comrades in South Africa. But someone says, no, this is biased media of white monopoly capital spreading propaganda. Well, let's listen to a comrade then. This is what Kgalema Motlanthe, the former president, a comrade, put together a report of a high-level panel on the assessment of key legislation and acceleration of fundamental change, transformation, in 2017. Look at what Kgalema Motlanthe said. This is a comrade, one who rose to be president. The evidence examined by the panel showed that land reform is beset by severe problems. People at the hearings expressed their sense of having been betrayed by government officials and politicians. Many people and groups who submitted restitution claims before 1998 have still not received land despite signed settlement agreements in some instances. Beneficiaries complained of officials whom they allege are unhelpful, rude, and dismissive of their concerns. They also pointed to increasing corruption, with land going to unknown people rather than to those whose names are on claim forms and applications. The problem of corruption has been confirmed by recent SIU investigations of senior officials in the department. Comrades, fighters, revolutionaries, people complain that they are currently more vulnerable to dispossession than they were before 1994. This is not me saying this. I'm reading what Comrade Kgalema Motlanthe said. The problem is especially acute in areas where mining is taking place. Mining deals that enrich a select few while excluding ordinary people. Those deals are possible only because officials collude with elites in ignoring various oversight and accountability provisions in the law. So especially when there's mining, that's why mining has gone down in terms of what it contributes to our economy. The comrades really run fast and hard there and make sure they get their hands on it. The current policy is that people should not get ownership of redistributed land. Instead, the land remains the property of the state and beneficiaries get leases or conditional use rights. So as soon as the land gets into the comrades' hands, they're not passing it on to you. They say you can use it for a while, but it's mine. Research indicates that in practice, in many cases, they get no recorded rights to the land whatsoever. This makes it very difficult, if not impossible, for them to develop the land or protect their right to it. Since inception of the land redistribution program in 1995, a total of 5% of commercial agricultural land has been redistributed. So agricultural land redistribution has not been held by white people, but comrades, they've only handed over 5%, and this was in 2016. After 22 years, the comrades only let go of 5% of commercial agricultural land. Yet they still say 75% of commercial agricultural land is held in white hands. Yes, not because of white people, but because of black comrades. Let's show you my biblical reaction. Do you remember when Mary took 3 pounds, 3/4 of a pound of expensive, pay attention, expensive aromatic oil and anointed the feet of Jesus? Then she wiped his feet. Now the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfumed oil. This is important. The house was filled with the fragrance of the expensive perfumed oil. And then Judas goes and puts a rally at the gate of the feet of Jesus. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, the one who was going to betray him, there comes that word that Comrade Khalima Mutlante used. He complained about this expensive oil. But it's because this oil was expensive and there was a fragrance. Let me show you something. In Tshwane, same place where you have Kleinfontein, you also have EFF. Let's march to Coronation. Why have they not marched to Coronation? Because there is no fragrance going through the house. There's nothing about Coronation that makes one envious. Did you hear that Coronation doesn't necessarily take outsiders and you have to go through the leadership? It's the same in Orania, it's the same in Kleinfontein. What's the difference? Orania is successful, Kleinfontein is successful. So Judases only respond to what they want. He's the one who was going to betray him, and this is what he said. Why wasn't this oil sold for 300 silver coins and the money given to the poor? He doesn't say which poor, just like they don't say who Orania has been racist to, who Klipfontein has been racist to. If that march happened because people inside Klipfontein just beat up a black guy, I would get it. Oh, you're marching for them. But no, out of nowhere. It's the same with the ANC. They say it's for the blacks. You never know which ones. The EFF will say we are fighting for the blacks, and MK, we are doing it for the blacks. Anytime you hear an accusation of racism without clear facts, you know you have Judas just exposing themselves. Now, Judas said this not because he was concerned about the poor, but because he was a thief. As keeper of the money box, he used to steal what was stolen in it. So Jesus says, leave her alone. She has kept this. The poor you will always have with you. So when people act like the existence of the poor means it's time to attack the well-off, you know you are dealing with Judases. They don't care about the poor. You will know people who genuinely care about the poor because they will care equally about the poor as they do about the well-off. And so this is what we are dealing with in South Africa, because apartheid is used so that Judases can say we care about blacks. The only person who cares about blacks is the one who cares equally about blacks and whites. That one truly cares about blacks. People call me a sellout all the time. You love white people. Every single one of them who calls me a sellout for not loving black people has not done 10% of what I've done for black people. So how you know a Judas is that they will love the one and hate the other. Then you know they just envious of what the other has. So the people never got land. And right now a meeting is happening with the leaders of Orania and Kleinfontein. If they agree to pay some money direct to EFF leaders, it'll go down and it will be quiet. If they don't pay them, we'll be hearing about Orania and Kleinfontein for a while. So while that's going on, please spread this video to as many people as possible so they can know what scam we are living under. And to you believers, no man can serve two masters, because at some point you will have to love one and hate the other, respect one and disrespect the other. You believers that are still unrepentantly forcing to side with ANC, EFF, MK, you cannot serve God and Karl Marx, but you do have the freedom to hate Jesus, to hate God. You do have the freedom to disrespect God, disrespect the gospel, disrespect the Bible. Choice is yours. So, for the rest of us, let's bring prosperity to the country and let's make history together. See you at the next one. Yo! This is rough.